Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. And keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy.
All right, folks, here we are on Tuesday, January 14th. We're going to take a look at NIO today. We've been looking at NIO a lot lately. Folks keep asking for it for some reason. So I have a brand new look on the chart here to maybe give a different view and to simplify things to a large degree. So let me talk about what we're looking at and then we'll go into it in more detail. So what I've added in here is this little bit of uptrend support. We hadn't put this on the chart before, but there is this uptrend support that kicked off in like April of 2024 and then reconfirmed like through August and even very, very close to September. But it got that big lift up to 771 where it hit back in September off of that, August reconfirmation on that uptrend support. So I'm sure NIO bulls don't want to see it come back down to this uptrend support, but I did want to put it in there because it did have a pretty clear impact previously, even where it kicked off. It ran that from 361 up until it double topped just over $6. So, huge percentage gains to be had there, and they happened really fast. So we have that. That's new in the chart. I left this support level at 436 in here just to show this consistent support level, which it has now dipped below. So what I mean by that is if it rises back through it, it may be quite sticky at that level because it has been such a strong support level for so long that relatively recently gave away. Now that said, when it rose through that here, or even when it came up through it here it totally just gapped through it, right? It had a plus 8.72% day and it gapped right over that level. And then here when it rose, you can see it sort of wicked off of it to have this big up day of over 14%. But yeah, it flew through it pretty quickly. So there's a good chance that if history is going to repeat itself, especially if it does hit this uptrend support again, but it does sort of cruise through there. I don't know, but it's interesting at the moment at least that it has been such strong support. We got all these areas here, but it hasn't been sort of equally as strong of a resistance level. It hasn't really been a resistance level at all. So we'll see how that sort of takes shape as time goes on. So those are fresh, and then the purple levels are all fresh. This is a fib extension level to the downside. So since NIO has been on quite the downturn for quite a long time, I brought in sort of relative aspects of the most recent swing from that 771 level down to lows, just below that 436 level. And obviously then it had a brief pop up to 536 and now it's trembling down again. And so the levels, I took a look at them, they look pretty solid. They lined up with a lot of the levels that we had on the previous chart, but it does give us some additional levels to look at. So let's take a look there at the nearest in levels. We have 405 is really the level that it's battling with at the moment. And you can zoom in and see that for sure, right? Bounced right off of it today, came down and nearly retested it toward the end of the day. Yesterday, the whole trading day was spent on that level. In previous day, it was coming off of that 436 that we have on the chart that we just spoke about, as at least on the daily chart, having not been a really strong resistance level previously intraday. Yeah, sure. On the 8th, it definitely proved out to be a strong resistance level. And then sort of floated in between on the 10th and then banged down, and it's trying to hold support now for 2 days in a row at this 405 level. So we'll see if that continues to hold or not, sort of what shape that takes. Now, if it does give way, before we get to this 365 level, we do have this uptrend support. So I'm really interested to see if it comes down. Again, I'm sure the bulls don't want to see it come down into this uptrend support because that would probably put it, if it does in the next few days or so, like in the high threes, like maybe 3 not that high three, but like 370, 375, somewhere around there. That's about where it would catch support off of this uptrend. So we'll see if it can bang off of there, but just seeing what it has done in recent motions off of that level, I am really, really interested. Myself not being in NIO at the moment, I'm interested to see if an opportunity presents itself there, and I don't care if it's a rapid move and there can be a brief but impressive gain element to there. I would happily take it. I'm not looking for shares to hold for years and years and years, but who knows? I mean, if it gets some legs off of that, maybe that does become interesting to you. Because the other thing, for as long as it does continue to hold this uptrend support, you probably weren't super enthusiastic if you bought at 361 and then it rose and came back down and it bounced again at like 372. But it is still, even if you are holding for longer term, it is still making slightly, this is ever so slightly, higher lows. So even if you are holding them longer, again, I'm sure it's not the gains, and it's probably really rough when you do get a really strong percentage gain and then those are all just sort of torn away from you in a pretty quick period of time. But if you are looking for shares for a longer term, for as long as this uptrend support holds, which I don't know if it will next time it tests it, but for as long as it does, that does mean that it's putting in higher lows. So yeah, I mean, if you're not worried about the short term, rustling there, rattling of your feathers, no, rustling of your feathers, rattling of your bones, that's the one, then yeah, maybe that works even for folks that are looking for longer term. But for me, I would be looking for a short term play off of that. Could be really interesting if it comes down to it. If it slips that, then yeah, that whole thing is bust, and then we're looking at 365, looking at 325, basically. You get fractions of pennies here, and then we do have a 267 down there as well on the extension. So we'll see how those hold. We do still have an unfilled gap area up here that takes it from gets into that gap around 960, fills it at 1022. People scream and shout about gaps all the time. So yes, that is forever away, from where the price currently is and where the motion currently is. But hey, I'll mention it so that you don't get the 3 random people in the comment section who just want to talk about gaps and, oh my god, I didn't mention every single gap that they feel is important. So there you go. There's that one. So those are the levels and the sort of formation setups that I see. EMAs wise, you have the 183 way up here at 514 at the moment. So yeah, if it gets super leggy, maybe that becomes interesting. It has pushed off of that really strong the last couple of runs. So again, if it could flip that, maybe there's something more interesting to be had there. Not even making contact with the 8 EMA at the moment, even though it is, curling a little bit off of that 401 level where it hit yesterday on the low. But, just finishing the day at 408. So small, but it's there. So we'll see if this curl starts to take shape at all, and if it can start to make contact with the 8, kind of push through to these 21 and 34 EMAs, that's obviously what's going to be required to get some motion through. But even more than the EMAs at the moment, I am sort of most interested in this for all of the reasons that I mentioned previously. Order flow, my goodness, almost every single share is not profitable, at least per this info on Webull. This is after yesterday's close. Look at that. It's a lot of folks holding who had it here. It doesn't tell me exactly what this is, but I would guess around 450, 470, somewhere around there. Ay caramba. Yeah, and even some folks still holding from way up here in the much higher single digits, but holy moly. Some large-scale orders coming in today, nothing tremendous. A few days ago you had some more, but then you had even higher amounts of large-scale orders coming out. In between these small greens were some larger reds. This red larger than that one larger than that. So definitely supersedes both of those for sure. And you know, there's a lot of work to do for NIO here if it wants to get some motion. Here in the Thinkorswim side of things, we do have a trigger and fire in the TTM squeeze indicator. And it fired ever so briefly, so nothing came of it. And then it re-triggered for 3 candles. And now we're 2 candles into a secondary fire. So I'm always really interested in the re-triggers and the re-fires, where a stock triggers for a lengthy period of time, fires, nothing happens, and then it goes right into another trigger and fires. I'm always interested to see, okay, because a lot of times we see it where that re-trigger and re-fire is really where the move comes. If that's the case, we don't know which way the move goes, so keep that in mind. But if it does want to work its way through the entirety of either of these ATR levels, if it goes to the upside, that call trigger triggers at 511, right? So even that's a really good gain. But that +1 ATR would punch you all the way to 753. So, you know, if things want to get hot and fiery, that would be amazing. If it does come down and dips below the put trigger and it has a big move to the downside based off of the TTM squeeze indicator, that put trigger is at 361 and it has a -1 all the way down to $1.19. Could you imagine NIO getting down well below $2 and even then closer to $1? That would be sort of wild. But we'll see how that goes, and if these start to come into play at all. You know, the story is still to be told if this re-trigger and re-fire is actually going to produce the outsized move that we look for from the TTM squeeze indicator. Sometimes, as happens with all indicators and all trend formations, at times they just fail, right? The thing you expect to happen doesn't happen. So that's always a possibility as well, that it's just a misfire, if you will, to stay with the fire lingo, and nothing happens. So we'll see. But hopefully these levels are of some help or interest to folks. Here, I'll zoom all the way out so you can see them, but you know, you can certainly scroll back in the video if you want to see them more clearly. There you go. There's all your purples, and you have the 436 in the middle there. That's a hand-drawn one by myself, as are these yellow downtrend and uptrend support levels on the chart. All right, folks. Well, I hope that your trading week is off to a good start, and as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.